The question of money
Yeah.
would come up in satsang occasionally.
Yes.
He never ever charged anything for his satsangs.
Himself, yes.
Ramana Maharshi never charged.
Yes.
And he always made a point of saying in satsang that if you start charging, immediately the whole satsang becomes corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
He said, as soon as money enters, then your satsang becomes adjusted to the factors of money. It's not pure anymore. I somehow doubt that he would tell anyone to give satsang and charge money, because he was so opposed to this himself, and whenever he was asked in satsang, even the business of just leaving a donation, he'd say no. As soon as you become dependent on money, then some element of corruption comes in, and it's not pure satsang anymore.
Some questions that we have in life just seem to struggle to leave us. And this question became one of them. Not from a place of judgment, and not from a place of wanting to be right and see other people as wrong. It was more out of a genuine curiosity. And sometimes curiosity deserves to be followed and explored. So before we actually go any further, for anyone who hasn't come across what the term satsang means, from my own understanding, satsang literally means being in the company of truth. People come together to explore awareness, identity, reality, and what we truly are. Now, the intention isn't to give someone something that they don't already have within them. It points back to what is already here. Now, a while back, there was an invitation into a satsang community, and the curiosity was there for me to explore it. So, in the beginning, an initial payment was required, and that was understood at the time. There wasn't really any issue with that. It was weekly Zoom calls, so every Sunday there would be a weekly Zoom call, and a community came with that on the messaging service, WhatsApp. And the conversations that we had, the back and forth and the talks on Sundays were great. You know, very, very along the lines of what it is that I look to explore and discuss when it comes to spirituality, awareness, consciousness, etc. Then something interesting started to happen within me, and a question just kept returning again and again. And that question was, if satsang is something simply pointing back to what we already are, then what is exactly being paid for? Is it the teaching itself? The teacher? Is it the community? The time? Or just the access to it itself? Now, I'd just like to say that this isn't about saying that spiritual teachers or people that host spiritual communities shouldn't earn money. Of course, people need to live and survive. And time has value. Our time has value, of course. And communities cost money. You know, this is the way of the world currently that we live in. Websites cost money. Zoom costs money. None of that is really being questioned. Now, of course, everything that we pay for in life, it makes sense, and I understand it. Paying for a book, for example, makes sense. Paying for coaching, it makes sense. Paying to go into a supermarket and buy something off the shelf makes sense. Building a business and paying towards that makes sense, and charging people for that, it makes sense. But another question within me appeared based off this experience. And that question was, is satsang the same as that? Or is it fundamentally different? If the core message of satsang is that there's nothing actually missing and everything is one, can access to that message become something that is purchased? Now, my perspective on this, and I don't know if anybody else sees it in the same way. I'm not really, here to explore that. Like, I'm here to just speak my thoughts and my truth on the way that I see things. And if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But throughout history, spiritual teachers and spiritual masters, such as gurus or the great sages and masters over the course of history, such as Jesus or Buddha, or even great poets, have all come to the same realization that we are all one, right, and interconnected, and point people back towards that inner truth. The labels aren't really important, but the message is. And that raises another question. If the message is actually timeless, then should access to it depend on payment? Now, for me, I am looking to actually start getting into creating a business based around spirituality, selling health products and things that will enhance people's health and things like that. Which makes the question even more important, because the same kind of standard could apply here, right? Otherwise, it would become, hypocritical. Now, from what's currently understood, there seems to be a difference for me between paying for somebody's work and paying access to a spiritual inquiry itself, self-inquiry. To me, it's kind of like walking into church and being told by somebody that you have to pay to enter. Now, I don't know if that sits right with anybody else. I know it probably sits right with a hell of a lot of people. But to me, it just seems like there's something not quite right about it. But there is no wrong or right in the end anyway. And everyone can do and feel, obviously, they are free to do whatever it is that they want to do in life. And I completely understand and respect that. I can't change that. All I can do is speak on it. And if what I speak upon changes people's perspective, that's not on me, it's on them. I don't hold anything towards myself and claim that I've changed people. Now, there isn't a claim to have an answer or to prove something. It's only a willingness to keep on asking the question and keep on talking about this kind of thing. So then, through that experience, another question started to arise. And that question was, well, if somebody can't afford to pay it, then are they not included? Are they not allowed to access the community, the Zoom call? And I'm not saying that I couldn't afford to pay, but I felt like that because I didn't pay, I was no longer a part of the Zoom call. I was no longer welcome anymore. And it didn't upset me or anything. I kind of saw it in a way where, well, okay, if that's the case, if I can't attend to speak freely and to listen freely, which is just part of human sensory exploration, then I don't need this. I don't need to pay my hard-earned cash that I earn on a weekly basis into something that should really be an open and free space anyway. And that's just my perspective. I'm not saying that it's wrong or right, as I said earlier. But really, it comes down to, should community and a spiritual community service really depend upon payment? Or is there another way of looking at this? I don't know. I'm open to hearing other people's perspectives. And if you've got your own perspective and you want to comment, please comment, and I'll always take it on board. I'm not going to reject any information or anyone's opinion on certain things. I respect everyone's opinion. So the bigger picture really being that I've kind of pondered upon about the experience over the past few weeks really is that money hasn't always existed, and economic systems have always changed over the years, and they'll probably continue to change. The truth is spoken about as timeless, right? you know, when it comes to oneness and spirituality as like the infinite truth. And that's what people on the spiritual path seek, is that more understanding about the nature of reality and existence, and who it is that we are at the core level rather than the surface level, and even that is included in the whole thing anyway. So realistically, should something that is timeless and that leads us all back to the same truth depend on something that's temporary anyway? And when you really think about the future and the way that things are going with AI, is that eventually money won't really exist anyway, again, just like it did prior to when it existed. So it ultimately comes down to like the realization that eventually everything will go back to the way it was, rather than all about, you know, possession and money and being of service to other people in exchange for money. It will go back to a way where it will be about a community that we do things for each other without the exchange of any imaginary currency, basically some digits on a screen, some fake bits of plastic that hold no real value, especially beyond the actual value that we get from just being of service to each other as a humanity, as a human species. So to conclude this video, there's not really a conclusion, just more questions, you know. And that's not clinging to questions all the time and constantly thinking about, you know, questioning and like if it's right or wrong to pay for satsang. I'm not that in my own head about it, but I like to explore certain aspects of what it is that I see within the world, and that's perfectly fine and normal to do. So it's not to convince anybody or say that anybody's right or wrong or to prove anything. It's just to stay open enough to question, basically. To question, can truth belong to anyone? Can truth have a price? Or does charging change the nature of a spiritual community, such as church or satsang or a temple? Or does it make no difference at all? You know, and I feel like it's probably the case that maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't make any difference at all. But then again, the question arises for a reason. And I'm not the only one. You know, there was actually a person that reached out to me from that group chat shortly after that said they felt the same way. So I'm not going to mention a name or, you know, but that was part of the reason why I also continued to ponder upon the question, because I thought, well, if I wasn't the only one, then they can't be the only one either. There's got to be other people out there that see things in a similar kind of manner. And again, I'm not doing this video to change anyone's perspective or change anyone's current methods of bringing in finances. That's completely on them. Like, and I respect that and you know, appreciate that people are looking to support themselves and survive. I understood that from the beginning. I understand how business works and service works. But yeah, I think that I'll leave the video at that. And you know, if it resonated, if it didn't, then I'd like to hear your opinion and thoughts on the matter. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.